and welcome to Reconnection with Deeper Self. It's the section of Living Resilience Deep Academy Learning Series, Reconnection. It's good to have you here. Again, we've done enough recapping of what the introductory series were. You've gotten yourselves through that and somehow find enough value, enough interest to keep you engaged. And I'm very, very happy about that. And you may recall, you may have already made your way into some part of this series. In other words, more than likely, the context setting and sense making section that just preceded this. And you may also have opened up the meditation and implicit senses training series. And I really hope you've done both of those things. And even more than that, I hope you're doing this work with kindred spirits, with some buddies who are also on the path, folks who can help hold space for you and you for them as you take on what can be pretty darn difficult work. So I hope that those things are true. And, I'm wanting to shift gears a little bit. I'm hoping in this particular series and in this particular section to lighten it up a little bit. It doesn't mean that the work is not significant or it's somehow there's less gravitas or something. I think there's plenty of gravitas to go around. And so I'd like to just offer a little bit of lightness, a little bit of an alternative, a little bit of wiggle room for our creativity, for our sense of spontaneity and a sense of reaching out for new ways of being in the face of this predicament-laden world that might just include some laughter. It might just involve some really authentic, intimate, and wonderful connection with other people. So let's head that way in kind of an odd way. So here we go. I'd like to remind you that the purpose of this Living Resilience Deep Academy work is that it's offering transformative support and resources to people bravely facing human-caused collapse of Earth and human systems. Hopefully you've heard that a few times now and that it's not completely unfamiliar to you. I'd also like to remind you that one of the primary intentions of this particular learning series, that's called Reconnection, is to aid us in reclaiming a baseline, an experiential and cognitive baseline with which we might more accurately see, experience, discern, and relate with other people and with Earth herself. Baseline. That's going to be a part of every one of the elements that follow, that this one and all that follow after it. How can we recover an experience of a baseline understanding of what the world is like, what other people are like, what our own inner relationship with deeper self is like? And because without it, we're basically committing ourselves to an excruciatingly difficult path ahead. Living without a baseline in any significant part of our lived sense of being alive on Earth at this time has landed us in a collective condition that can justifiably be called insane. We are presently living in a time of suicide, omnicide, multidimensional disconnection from life itself. One way of summing up the shape we're all in is that we are all a collective hot mess. So, in the name of nudging ourselves back from the intense and despair filled cliff edge of collapse aware introspection and finding a bit of breathing room in this, of course, being the most challenging moment in human history, we're going to introduce and keep on offering opportunities to see some lightness, some humor. Yes, it may sometimes be gallow humor, but we'll take what we can get here. I'm going to show you a clip from an older movie, but maybe one that you've seen. It's The Jerk from with Steve Martin. What I ask is if you will imagine Steve Martin is not just playing his unbelievably pathetic character, but that he's also somehow a representative of how humanity, particularly humanity from the USA in the year 2020, and scan in this masterpiece of comedic delivery what you can see in terms of how out of sorts Steve Martin's character is, how completely he has lost his own sense of center, of physical center, of energetic center, of cognitive center, relational center. It's all just a hot mess. Notice how devastated his sense of agency is, how disconnected he is from every conceivable meaning, source of meaning, and relationship in his life. Even his own sweetheart, completely disconnected. In his grand exit, which is what we're going to be watching, the only thing he can come up with to end this excruciating, dismal life that he's in is to exit while crowing about how he doesn't need anyone or anything. For those of you who've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. What if Steve Martin is a representation of our collapsing culture, flailing about and gnashing its teeth and having no idea how to self-regulate, how to actually see the truth of the moment we're in, having no access to our individual and collective centers? So that's probably more than enough setup. This is Steve Martin in The Jerk.
Pay to the order of Mrs. Wilbur Stark, $1.09. Pay to the order of Iron Balls McGinty, $1.09. Why are you crying? And why are you wearing that old dress?
Because I just heard a song on the radio that reminded me of the way we were.
What was it?
Where we were. Look at it. We've hit bottom.
No! Maybe you've hit bottom, but I haven't hit bottom yet. I got a ways to go. And I'm gonna bounce back. And when I do, I'm gonna buy you a diamond so big, it's gonna make you puke.
I don't want to puke. I don't want well. I just want you like you used to be. What happened to that man?
Me? What happened to the girl I believed in? The girl I fell in love with? The girl that believed in me? Well, there's plenty of places I can go where people believe in me.
Well, go. The sooner you're out of my life, the sooner I can go back to being the girl in this little flower dress that you sang the service song to.
Well, I'm gonna go then. And I don't need any of this. I don't need this stuff. ashtray and these matches and the remote control and the paddle ball. This lamp. The ashtray. This paddle game and the remote control and the lamp, and that's all I need. And that's all I need too. I don't need one other thing. Not one. I need this. The battle game and the chair and the remote control and the matches for sure. Well, what are you looking at? What do you think I am, some kind of a jerk or something? And then, that's all I need. The ashtray, the remote control, and the mat game, and the magazine here.
That, of course, is Steve Martin and Bernadette Peters shredding it in The Jerk. That movie is, I don't know how old that movie is, but it seems like one of those timeless comedies that we can keep jumping back to. You know, there's a couple of different folks who are watching this particular section, this particular video in this section of the Reconnection series in Deep Academy from Living Resilience. So one type of person is someone who knows they got themselves into this Deep Academy program, and you're kind of moving through section by section in these learning series, and you're bringing your thoughts and your questions and ideas to the other members of the support group, support circles that that you're participating in, as you perhaps are a part of the community of practice here. There's another person who might be watching this, and that is I will be posting this quite intentionally on the Poetry of Predicament podcast, and also posting it in the Deep Adaptation Forum community, and also in the Positive Deep Adaptation Facebook group. And just want to be introducing folks to this work. And this is a pretty representative episode or video to give people a sense of what is this Deep Academy work, what is it that y'all are doing. So I'd just like to review a little bit of the basics, and I'll try my best to keep it in the framing of, in contrast to the jerk segment that we just saw. In other words, if we're looking at a rather pathetic character in the Steve Martin character, just trying to make sense of how his life has completely and utterly collapsed. And what I'm trying to point at here, and as we blow that out to a global scale, is that we really are not very well prepared for collapse in our world, a collapse that is completely and utterly caused by us, by human beings. And that was part of the resilience section in particular. So there's a whole series on resilience. And the first section of that resilience series was actually pointing to the global version, or for sure the national version, if we look at the USA, of what it is to be in collapse at that level. And to me, there's quite a blend, quite a match with the Steve Martin character, and how completely unprepared, unresilient, anti-resilient his character is, and how anti-resilient the USA as a whole is, and much of the business as usual world globally is. So I'd just like to kind of stir up some memories of core pieces of this work. So there's a what I'm fond of calling an elevator pitch for the Living Resilience Deep Academy, and is the purpose of Living Resilience Deep Academy is offering transformative support and resources to people bravely facing human-caused collapse of Earth and human systems. And want to particularly put emphasis on that first major word in that elevator pitch, which is transformative, offering transformative support and resources. I'm quite intentional by using that, and I want to just make mention of our world is such a commodifying machine. Anything that can be commodified and turned into a sales pitch or some way of enticing others to fork over some of their money so that someone else can profit. And that commodification is literally everywhere at every level now in our world, and has been for quite some time, and could be said to be the cause of our predicament-laden world. So, what I'd like to do is bring some of my experience of the word transformation or transformative, and recall with you and for you my vivid memories and vivid present experience that transformation is a thing. It is quite an extraordinary experience. I happen to work in a transformation-based training engagements for decades, and also a number of different kinds of transformative experience, ranging from plant medicine and shamanic practices to using transformation-based processes and distinctions with corporate executives and organizational development work around the world. So let's just look at what is this stuff, transformation. As we can see here, transformation can be seen as a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance. An example is its landscape has undergone a radical transformation. Please note the word radical or root. There's no shortage of extremes in language when talking about transformation. One thing I'd like to just say right here briefly is that transformation is not the same as change. Change and transformation are not the same thing. So let's just look a little bit further here in the traditional definitions of transformation. Another example of metamorphosis during the life cycle of an animal. And of course, with metamorphosis, what else do we think of but butterflies? And it's hard to imagine a more distinct and truly miraculous example of transformation as the liminal state that the caterpillar goes through to become the butterfly. Last one here from physics, the induced or spontaneous change of one element into another by a nuclear process. Again, an extreme process at the nuclear level. So you get this sense that even in this rather everyday definition of transformation, it's quite an extraordinary term. It's one to really not take lightly. I'd like to give you a few words that I put together about my experience of transformation. For me, transformation is an invited or uninvited, nonlinear, discontinuous jump or expansion in elements in our experience that invite a greater sense of awareness, belonging, connection, coherence, relatedness, interbeing, aliveness, or vividness. Can be any or all of those elements. Could happen one at a time, could happen all at once, can be invited and welcomed, can be uninvited and either shock or deeply disruptive. Transformation is serious business. So just wanted to give you a few words from my experience of what transformation can mean. So getting back to Steve Martin and the Jerk, let's face it, a few little changes or tweaks in Steve Martin's world, any portion of that world, wasn't going to stand a chance at truly making a difference in his dismal condition. And I would say the same thing about us on a global scale. Human beings, the human operating system on a global scale, a few little tweaks here and there, those days have passed long ago. The chance of us taking some relatively easy off ramp to changing a little thing here and there, even down to who we vote for and who's representing us in the various political parties. It is my very strong opinion here that those days and those opportunities have been long ago passed up. So what's called for now, and what's really been called for all along, but now it really is the only chance at any significant shift in our world, is to invite transformation. I'd like to share two very well-known quotes to help make that point. One's from Albert Einstein, the other's from Charles Eisenstein. The Albert Einstein quote goes something like this: "The problems we're facing today cannot be solved by using the same level of thinking that was used when they were created." The Charles Eisenstein quote: "We all want the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible." So for both of those, I think they offer stellar examples of what it is to invite transformation, an entirely new way of thinking. And if I can take a little poetic license here with Mr. Einstein's quote, entirely new ways of feeling, of relating, of expressing ourselves, of bringing forth a human operating system on this planet, to bring a truly new example of any of those dimensions invites transformation, nothing less than transformation. Similarly, Charles Eisenstein's calling for the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible also is a calling for transformation. This Reconnection series, this Deep Academy body of work, all the Living Resilience website and the Poetry of Predicament podcast and all the rest of it is designed to offer as much transformative support and resources as possible to people bravely facing human-caused collapse of Earth and human systems. You've been kind enough to sit through and really dive into, hopefully, both of the introductory series here in Living Resilience Deep Academy. the Living in Two Worlds series and the Resilience series, and now the Reconnection series. And to be very honest with you, there has been very little transformation based material presented. It's being done very much for a reason. We need to be able to name where we are. If we're attempting to map out entirely new territory, this transformation territory, we first need to know where we are. And so these have been all the presentations, all the videos, all the content. While some of it can be quite inspiring and informative, and even bring on insights in our world, that's good. But it is important to name that very, very little of this material so far has implied true transformation. Just a reminder that a couple of the core pieces that are involved, very much involved with all the sections of the Reconnection series that you have yet to dive into, and also many of the more advanced learning series that we're going to be heading into. They're really designed first and foremost at this point to help us reclaim a baseline in our experience, something that with which we can compare our situation in our world and in our experience now with past contrast or past examples of what was the baseline before human intervention or before the use of fossil fuels, or you get the idea. This level of baseline recovery, it takes work, it takes some study, and we'll make it as easy and accessible as possible. There are other aspects of the reclaiming baseline experience that for some of us, this will be the first time we've ever touched into it. Some of these elements of transformation can be quite disorienting. Remember in the definition phase just a few moments ago, when I was mentioning about this can be quite disruptive. This can really be, well, it can be scary, because we've been trained, most of us in our lives, that what we need is certainty, and what we've got is, in a fossil fuel driven world that we've all been raised in, certainty came easy when everything was fueled by fossil fuels. And what we're looking at now is we are truly at the beginning of an era where we must do nothing less than disengage ourselves from the fossil fuel reality. And that includes the certainty that it brought generation after generation. This includes a very intimate scale of approaching and exploring uncertainty, the mystery. What if not what we grew up in, if not what we've been for generations banking on, then what? That can be a very scary prospect to explore when it's inside of our own body, or inside of our own intimate relationships, or inside of how we develop community with our neighbors. You can start to see that this can be the ultimate disruption. It is, in fact, the ultimate disruption in the human operating system. What you're going to be exposed to, us particularly at this time in the Reconnection series, as I mentioned in a couple of prior videos, we're asking you to combine your experience in the Reconnection series with the meditation and implicit senses training. It's a couple of, pretty thick series at the same time. The good news is when you get over to the meditation and implicit senses training, it really is all in our body. It is really all, and it starts with the simplest possible version of meditation. And you'll also get an in-depth, what will become an in-depth introduction to the energy body. We think we've mentioned it before. If we can consider that in our workaday world, the regular world we're all used to, it just doesn't take much to imagine that we've actually got three bodies that we call normal. One's obviously our physical body. Another is our mental body, how what we think about and how we communicate and so on. A third is our emotional or our feeling body. It's easy enough to imagine these other two bodies mapping on top of or within our physical body. What's coming now in this particular set of learning series is our introduction of the energy body. For me, it is really like a home base, even more so than my physical body. This is the area of where I've spent the most time in my own personal practices since my early teens. So I'm very happy to be introducing this to people for whom it's new. And if you also have experience in the plant medicine world or the shamanic world or the energetic studies world or the transformation-based training world, all of these are in the same neighborhood. And so there will be something familiar in there for you who may have been exposed to these types of lineages in your personal practices in your life. So again, just to repeat the things that I've probably repeated the most in all these series is we hope you are truly taking your time. This is dense material, and these are not good places to rush through and, binge watch a bunch of videos and consider yourself done. We're getting into the area where a more methodical, regular routine of practicing with the meditations or practicing with the distinctions of the energy body, of transformative distinctions and practices. These are best taken in a pacing that works for your capacity right now. So I'd also like to repeat the admonition from the very beginning is if you have some way of doing these practices with other people, with other kindred spirits, I would strongly recommend it. And that can be built in if you've already signed yourself up for our community of practice. And whether or not you have access to the support groups that we have at least a couple each week. So hoping to see you there, hoping that you can find some real opportunities to reclaim some of that baseline, especially with regard to our connection with other people, to be able to build up some trust again, which has, I don't know about you, but has been thrashed for me in particularly this past year, but for really years now. So look forward to seeing you in the support group circles. Look forward to hearing from you and your feedback about the materials themselves. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, any suggestions for specific focused learning series that we might be able to add to our library. And welcome aboard.